All right, so I really briefly want to go over, this is for about inequalities. This is for University of St. Thomas math class 005. This is lesson 6, part 5. And I have less than, greater than, less than, or equal to, right? That's going to be a less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and then greater than or equal to. All right, and so this can be referred to as being strictly less than or strictly greater than. And that's kind of emphasizing, or perhaps overemphasizing, the fact that it is not equal to. So when we have one of these and it's on a 3D when we're graphing, right? On XY plane. All right, when we're graphing on XY plane, we're going to have dashed lines. We're going to have, if talking about on the number line, we have open dot, or we use parentheses. Okay? When we're talking about graphing on an XY plane, we've got equals. So we have a solid line. All right? Instead of dashed line, right? This would be a dashed line. This is going to be our solid line. And if we're talking in terms of on the real number line, we're going to have a solid dot, or we're going to use square brackets. Okay, I wanted to make certain that everyone is clear on that, because we're going to work on figuring out how something is going to behave. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go to our in-class 7.2, and we're asked to graph each of the following inequalities on separate coordinate axes. So I'm going to do one. I'm going to see if there's any others that I really should show you, and then I'm going to expect you guys are going to work on this on your own. All right, so in this case, I have x plus 3y is going to be less than 3. All right, one thing I want to make sure everyone's clear on is if we multiply or divide by a negative number, our inequality flips sign, okay? Inequality sign flips. Okay, so instead of being a less than, it would become a greater than, right? In this case, it's a less than. We'll see if we have to multiply or divide by a negative number. And if we do, then we're going to flip this from a less than to a greater than. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna try to figure out a couple places where we could solve this. All right. I'm going to pick some x's and y's. So if my x is 0, my 3y is going to be less than 3, which means my y is less than 1. All right. If I put in 1, actually if I put in a 3, let's do that, then my y has to be 0, right? Because 3 plus this here is going to be less than 3. So 3 is less than whatever our x is. It's got to be less than that 3. So x is strictly less than 3. So those are two that we can start with. And you could always add more points, and that's just fine. Ultimately, you need 2 points, and then you need to figure out 2 things. First of all, did we multiply or divide by a negative number? The answer in this case is no, we did not. So we don't need to flip our inequality. And the second thing we need to determine is, do we want a dashed line or do we want a solid line? This is strictly less than, so we are going to have a dashed line. Then we're going to figure out where, let me go ahead and pull this up. We're going to also figure out where our process is going to be shaded. Okay, so in our first case, we had our x or our y was equal to 1. All right, there's my 1. And in this case, my x was a 3. So I'm going to want to draw my line, start it here, and then there's that. Let's see if I can get this to work here. Sorry, this is taking a bit to call that good. Alright, have I got this now? Well, it's going to be a little rough, but actually, let me just draw it by hand. I'm probably better at it, or at least more efficient with it. Like this. And I get the fact this is not a great line. I want to go ahead and make certain it's dashed. So, and actually, let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to erase these pieces. So I've got a dashed line going through here. Now, we're going to shade the part that that statement is true for. Okay, that tells us which one. We've got our dashed line that tells us the barrier. Okay, you could also have a solid line, and that would give us our barrier in that case. Now we need to figure out which one is our solution. And the way we go about doing that is, I'm going to go back to my problem here, and I'm going to pick a point that's not on my line. Okay, so I'm going to pick the point just because it's easy. I'm going to pick 0, 0. All right, and I'm going to plug those in. So 0 as x plus 3 times 0 is less than 3. So now I go back to my graph. All right, and I'm going to say everything in this part of the graph. I usually use 0, 0 if it's available, because I want to make sure I am using easy numbers, and I want to make sure that it's real clear where it is. Now again, if 0, 0 is on the line or at the border line, maybe it isn't, maybe it's a strictly less than or greater than. If it's on that line, you can't use it. You have to pick another point. But this one's an easy one. Plug it in and away you go, right? It tells us for sure that everything below this dashed line is going to be a solution. All right, and this is getting long, so I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point.